Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I see a lot of people filing in already. We'll be getting started in a couple of minutes, but while you're settling in, we want to hear where you're joining us from. Illinois, me too. I'm in Chicago.
All right, see some Cali folks. I'm from Cali, the Bay Area specifically, so I haven't seen anyone there from there yet.
Awesome. While we're waiting, just to answer a couple of common questions before we get started, this is being recorded today, and the recording will be shared with everybody who registered via email tomorrow. So if you have to hop off early or know somebody that wanted to attend but couldn't, you will be getting the recording in your email tomorrow. We will not be sharing the slides for this presentation, but feel free to rewatch that recording to see the slides. Let's just give it another minute here just to make sure everybody is settled in and ready. Oh, there's Bay Area.
Yeah, there we
Oh,
go.
there's Chicago. Love that.
A lot of Cali, New York. We love that. International folks.
Awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Paige Lewanig from JobScan, and I'm really excited to have Keanna Carter here with us today. Keanna is a career coach who also has several years of experience in recruiting for top companies. She's going to be giving us the inside scoop on the recruiter's point of view in today's webinar, which is Unlocking the Recruiter's Playbook, Insider Tips for Job Seekers. Then we should have time to answer questions as usual at the end. So if you have questions that come up throughout the presentation, just pop them in the chat box. And my colleague Andy and I will be collecting those to ask Keanna after her presentation. All right, now over to you, Keanna.
Awesome. Thank you, Paige, and the JobScan team for having me. Like Paige mentioned, my name is Keanna. I am a recruiter and career coach. I'm here to share some insider tips to help you level up in your job search and land your next opportunity. So, here is a quick look of what we're going to cover today. So, we're going to start with your resume. So, what the purpose is, key elements, mistakes. Then we'll go into interview techniques. So, how to prepare, what to do during the interview, and what to do after the interview. And then lastly, we'll cover salary negotiation. So, how to research, what to negotiate beyond a salary, and then verbiage you can use as you're negotiating. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So before we go into all of that, I'm just going to do a brief overview of who I am, what I do. So I spent the last 8 years of my career experience in recruiting. I was at Facebook right after college for 2 years. From there, I moved to Google, where I focused on university recruiting for software engineers and data scientists. Was there for 2 years, and then I moved to a startup called GoPuff and was owning all of engineering and data recruiting there for 2.5 years. And from there, I actually put all my stuff in storage and moved to Mexico City for a year. So all of last year, I was in Mexico City. And then early this year, or I should say the first 8 months of this year, so until the last day of the Olympics, I was actually in Paris for 8 months. So during my time abroad, I did launch Your Key Coach, which is my career coaching business where I help people with their resumes, job search strategies, interview prep, and salary negotiation. Throughout my whole recruiting experience, I have partnered with over 100 hiring managers. I've recruited for over 300 roles. I've interviewed over 2,000 candidates, whether that's just recruiter screens or being part of interview panels or being that final interviewer to figure out if we're going to hire someone or not. And I've reviewed over 5,000 resumes. So I feel like I have a good grasp of what a resume should look like. And I really do share those strategies during my coaching sessions. Now that I'm back in the States, I did actually just land a role at Udemy as a recruiter. So I start on December 2nd. So going back into the corporate space and going back to what I know, but also will be doing some coaching on the side, just not 100%. Okay, so I'm a very interactive person, and I know how these things can get boring. So we're going to be using Slido during this presentation. So I'm going to give you guys 20 seconds to scan the QR code with your phone, or you can open up a window and type in slido.com, put in the code, and that's going to give you access to the questions that I have during this presentation. So we can stay awake, be interactive, and all the things. So I'll give you a couple more seconds to do that. And the QR code will also be on the questions as well, just in case you missed it. I'll give you guys 10 more seconds. All right. So the first question I have, how long is your current resume? And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but I will give insight as to what it should be. All right, we got a lot of 2 to 3 pagers, 1 page, got some 4 to 5 pages. Dang, 5+ pages. Okay. I hope you're an executive. All right, I'll give you guys another 10 seconds to put in your answer. All right. Okay, so we'll go into what or how many pages your resume should be. So the purpose of your resume, I like to think of it as a ticket to an interview. And on this ticket, you don't have to put every single thing that you've done in every single role that you've had. So when it comes to pages, I'm sorry, but 5+ pages, as a recruiter, I'm not reading all of that. I don't have time. And best believe a hiring manager definitely doesn't have time to read 5+ pages. At most, and I'm going to go by levels here. So as a new grad, your resume should really be 1 page. I don't want to see all of the projects that you've done. I mean, granted, if that's all the relevant experience that you have, that's fine, but it better not take up more than 1 page. For my mid-level folks, so I would say you've been in your career for at least 2 to 4 years. Again, 1 page is enough. When you get into even the manager level, it could be maybe a page and a half, but even then you can condense it to 1 page. The only time it should be more than 1 page is if you're a director and up, because obviously you've done a lot of owning, you've done a lot of implementing, you've probably held a lot of roles at this point, you're 10+ years into your career. At that point, yes, you can go to 2 pages, but 1 to 2 pages of max. Even if you're a VP, 2 pages, you can fit everything in. And as a recruiter, we're really only looking at, I would say, honestly, I take like 10 seconds to look at your resume. The only thing I'm looking at is what are you currently doing, or what did you recently do? What'd you do a little bit before that? And then maybe your last role that was like 3 to 5 years ago. Anything beyond that, I'm probably not going to read, because your first page is going to cover if you align to the role or not. So you really want to demonstrate your value in that sense. And you really want to make sure that you are passing the applicant tracking system. So really avoid having, those crazy designs. I know we all love Canva because we want to make it pretty. I don't think it's the time to make it pretty, because if your resume can't get through the ATS, then it's not going to be able to format correctly, and we can't read it. So keep it simple, make sure that it passes the ATS. And I know JobScan does have a tool where you can upload your resume and it will tell you if it's ATS readable. So please use that. So key elements of your resume. So starting with your contact information, what I really want to highlight here is you do not need to put your address on your resume. You need to remember that your recruiter and hiring manager is a stranger, and you just don't want your personal info like that out there. City and state is enough. Usually on applications, they'll ask for your resume. Well, they will. They'll ask for your address, so you can input it there. But your resume, since it's going to be floating around everywhere, just stick to city and state. Professional summary. So this one, I'm like kind of borderline in terms of like I agree with it and not. Honestly, from a recruiter perspective, we're really just looking at your experience because your experience is going to speak volumes to who you are. But let's say you're a program manager and you want to get into like a data science role and you're trying to explain yourself as to why you are going for this role. Go ahead and have a professional summary, but please keep it short, keep it simple. 2 sentences is enough. Again, if we're targeting 1 page, we want to make sure most of that page is your experience, and your professional summary, we're usually going to bypass that and go straight to your experience. Speaking about experience, you want to make sure that you're using good action verbs. So engage, executed, collaborated, partnered, managed. Like all of those words show ownership, and you want to really lean on that when you are talking about your experience on your resume. You also want to mention the quantity and metrics of things, because as a recruiter and hiring manager, we want to know, what are you capable of? How much volume are you able to handle? How much have you handled? So if I just put engaged with candidates for software engineering roles, okay, but how many candidates? I want to know, again, what volume are you able to handle? So really just be detailed in that sense with the metrics, who you worked with, what you owned, and why you did it. And then education, skills, and languages are very important as well. So here for education, for example, you want to put your highest level of degree first. So let's say I did have a master's, I would put that first before my bachelor's. I know a common question I get too is, should I put the year that I graduated? So the rule of thumb here is, if you are a new grad, again, if you are currently still in school, about to graduate, yes, put the year that you're going to graduate. So expected 2025 or expected 2026 or December 2024. Like that's fine. Like you're freshly out of college, fine. Anything after over a year or two, I would just not even put your year, especially if it's been years. Like for me, I graduated in 2016. I'm not putting that on there just because there's a lot of discrimination, age discrimination going on, and you just never know how someone's thinking, or they're like, oh, you're too, I don't know, too old, or whatever the case is. Long story short, if you're not fresh out of college, do not put the year. And then skills, I like to start with the things that I have, like I'm an expert in. So I'm expert in Greenhouse, Lever, Jazz HR. Like these are the tools that I don't need training in at all. So you want to start with those skills. And then as you go along in your skills, you want to maybe just start adding things that you may have worked on or worked with, but you might need a day or two to brush on, right? So like Confluent, Notion, Salesforce. Like I don't use those daily, but I've been exposed to them. And then anything towards the end is you may have used it once out of the year that you've been at that company. My rule of thumb here is that if you've touched it, been exposed to it, add it, because you know what it is, so just add it. And then languages is a good piece to have too. If you know multiple languages, it could set you apart from another candidate that they're trying to consider. I've seen that happen before in debrief meetings. If we're comparing 2 candidates and we see this candidate has more knowledge in languages, then we're most likely going to go with that other candidate. So definitely put that. It could help you land your role. Okay, common mistakes. Ooh, okay. Number 1, typos and grammatical errors. So this one's big. I feel like there's just so many tools nowadays where your resume should be flawless. Like all the, the editing that you need to do, and like the squiggly line that says that it's spelled wrong, please use that. I've worked with a hiring manager in the past where I don't know, my attention to detail was off that day. And I was like, oh, this person has good experience. Let me submit to the hiring manager. Well, I did. And the hiring manager's like, Keanna, there's like 3 typos here. Like, no, we're not hiring this person. And I was like, oh, oops. And it's because it was for a data analyst role. And she was like, I really want someone that has good attention to detail. And the fact that this person, I caught 3 typos and they didn't put in the effort to edit them, it just kind of shows what type of worker they are, which I was like, ooh, I didn't even think about that. And now I'm like, wait, that's my bad too, because I didn't even catch that. So yes, typos, grammatical errors, that should not be an excuse nowadays. Using generic descriptions. So kind of goes back to my point about the action verbs like managed, led. Again, don't just put like responsible for. Like that's just so vague. Like of course you're responsible for something in a job. You want to say that you managed something or you led or you implemented. Like those are ownership words. Team player. Of course you're a team player. You are a part of a team at work. So it's a given that you're a team player. So let's say partnered or collaborated. Things like that. We want to just make sure they're not generic. Poor formatting. Oh no, not aligning to the role. So basically, again, goes back to my point with like a program manager applying to a data science role. If you don't have any data science experience or data experience as a program manager and you're just on the fly applying for a data science role, you're most likely not going to get through. So just make sure that if you're applying to a role, you have some type of experience that aligns to it. Poor formatting. So it goes back to my point about Canva. I know we love Canva, but please be mindful and make sure that it is ATS readable. Doesn't need to have fancy colors. You don't got to do the most. Like, again, just focus on content and not what it looks like. Overly complex layouts, same thing. Just make sure that it's ATS readable. It doesn't have to be fancy. And then irrelevant info. So, like, some people like to put hobbies, like, oh, I like to run, I like to camp, I like to play an instrument. I, again, stick to what you do in your career. I just feel like in interviews, they're going to ask you, what do you do outside of work? And that's a perfect time to go in about your hiking fiasco or the books that you like to read. Like, that's great. But I just don't think you need to put hobbies on there. That isn't really going to make or break if you're going to get the job or not. All right, we have another Slido. So we're moving into interviewing. So when you think of interviewing, what's a word that comes to mind? It could be positive or negative. Okay, sales, stress. Yep. Daunting. So it says one word. So just can we try to keep it to one word? Yep, nervous. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Difficult. Oh, okay. Yikes. All right. We'll give it 5 more seconds. Okay. So the words that I'm seeing, and I'm sure you guys all are too, stressful, preparation, nervous. I get it. Interviewing is tough, but there are ways to prepare. And if I look back to when I first started interviewing, like when I interviewed at Facebook and Google, to who I am now is crazy because I was anxious, nervous. Oh my God, they're judging me. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm saying the right thing. I would really just beat myself up because there are times like after an interview, I'd be like, dang, I should have said this. But now that I'm 8 years in, and maybe because, I mean, I could be biased because I am a recruiter and I'm an actual interviewer, so I have a better grasp of like what I should be saying and things like that. Honestly, interviewing is just practice. And the more you do it, it's like it's a muscle. The more you interview and talk, the better you're going to get. So, things that you should do when you are preparing for your upcoming interview. Number one, research. Please know who you're talking to because I know as a candidate, you're applying to so many different roles and sometimes you don't even remember what you applied to, which is not a good look, actually. You should have a tracker. But please, your research, know what the company does, what their mission is, what their culture is like. Use Glassdoor, use LinkedIn, go to their LinkedIn company page, check their website. Another thing too is if you search on Google the company name and you click the news tab, you can look up what recent news or if they've been in the recent news about anything. You just really want to know what the company is. And when I'm practicing or preparing for interviews, I have time blocks for these things. So I'll do a 30-minute time block of just researching. And I'm just making sure I know the ins and outs of the company. And I do that through research. Practice common questions. So you're most likely going to be asked, tell me about yourself. So you should be comfortable talking about yourself and just be excited about all the stuff that you've done. That is really what interviewing is. It is what you know, but it also just be excited, be personable, act like you want this job. Don't be a robot. So, and I think that tell me about yourself question is really going to show, who you are, what you do, what your vibe. It's a vibe check. So just really think of it like that. Another common question, what is your greatest strength? What are you good at? What is your greatest weakness? I honestly hate that question because you have to flip it to make it seem that you've either learned from it or if it's a positive thing. Or like, what was your biggest mistake that you've made in your career? That's another one that gets me. So it's like really know the things that you're good at, but things or times where you drop the ball or you aren't the best at, because it does show that you are willing to learn from your mistakes because no one is perfect. So just know those questions. Study the job description. Please know what you're applying for. That goes hand in hand with research. Just know what the job description is, because typically when hiring managers are creating these job descriptions, they are also pulling questions from the qualifications and the responsibilities. So again, there's a lot of these tools, aka ChatGPT. What you could do is literally copy and paste the job description, ask ChatGPT, hey, give me 5 questions that may be asked in my interview from this job description, and it will populate questions that you can practice with. So please take advantage of these tools because they can help you. Prepare questions to ask. Okay, this one is just very important because as a interviewer, um, when you don't ask questions, it's like, I don't know, it just makes me feel like you're not interested or you weren't listening. Or sometimes people are like, oh, you've answered all my questions. That's great. But even then, you could just reiterate or ask again about something. Or if you want to learn more about something they mentioned, that's actually another good way to ask a question because it shows that you are actively listening to my spiel about the company or the role. Even you just saying, yeah, you answered most of my questions, but you did mention this. Can you explain more about that? Or I just want to confirm this. Like, make a question out of something that they already answered. But saying that you don't have any questions after like a 45-minute interview is crazy. So please ask a question, even if it's something as simple as, you know, what are next steps from here? When should I expect to hear back? But even those type of questions, I would really just make it about the company. So overall, just have questions to ask is the point I'm getting at. And then mental preparation. So interviews are a lot. And even speaking to someone, or even this for me, I did like a mental prep right before this. I did like a little meditation, affirmations, because, speaking for X amount of time is a lot. So just get into that confident mindset. YouTube is great. There's a bunch of meditations. There's like interview meditations I saw. Like you could even do that. Set intentions, envision yourself in the role. There's actually a study about chewing gum before an interview. So basically, when you chew gum before an interview, it lowers your cortisol levels. So it helps you feel calmer and more focused. So 30 minutes before an interview, just chomp on some gum. Obviously, throw it out before your interview just because talking with gum can be a lot. So yeah, gum helps. Use it. So during the interview, I know interviewing's, it's a lot. So you want to make a strong first impression. So with that comes your personality, your energy, be excited. Just really build that rapport with that interviewer. How's your day? How's work going? Happy Friday. Any plans for the weekend if it's a Friday? Or hey, how's your Monday going? Just keep it light, but ease into it. I'm sure a lot of companies too nowadays, they are doing more of that building rapport before just diving into the interview questions. At least good companies will do that. I don't know about every industry, but I know in tech specifically, they really treat interviewing like a conversation. Star and car method. So star method is great, But for me, I hate it because I lose my train of thought so fast. So when I'm in interviews, if I do star, I'm like, okay, I gotta say, like, I have to mentally do gymnastics of, okay, it's the situation. Okay, I gotta cover that. The task. Okay, I gotta cover that. Action. But then I get task and action mixed up, and then result. And then I'm like, then it ends up being like a 20-minute answer. So I personally don't like star. Some people love it because it keeps them on track. But for me, I just can't. So I do car, and car is the challenge. So challenge goes into situation in a sense. So the situation led to this challenge. And then I just say the action. This is what I did, and this was the result of what I did. So I just really keep it simple, but I do make sure that I have the allotted time to say my answer. So I'm gonna make car at least a 2 to 3 minute answer. But star for me, I can't. It just gets too winded. So regardless of what method you use, both do help you clearly communicate your experience and do show the impact of your actions. Showcase skills and value. So this goes into the metrics that I mentioned about your resume. You want to make sure that you talk about metrics, the things that you've owned, you optimized something, you saved a team 10 hours of work because you implemented this tool. You really want to showcase that in your interviews. And along with that is know what's on your resume, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to ask you in the interview about a specific thing you wrote. So your resume should just have that little summary, which is that bullet point, but you should be able to go in during those interviews and elaborate on those bullet points. So one exercise that I show my clients is have your resume, but every bullet point be able to write a couple of sentences about that specific thing that you did. So that kind of helps you kind of get your brain going in terms of things that you can pull. So use that and focus on what makes you stand out. Is it your technical expertise, your leadership, your problem solving skills, all of those things? Be engaged. So again, that goes with nodding your head, being like you want to be here. Your energy again shows. So definitely make sure that you are being engaged. You're asking questions, or your remarks like, "That's interesting. Oh, tell me more." I have been in debrief meetings. So as a recruiter, we always debrief after someone goes through a panel interview, or if we have let's pool of candidates, we'll have a debrief to talk about each candidate to see who's going to go through. And there have been times in debrief meetings where someone had the skills and they did well, like on paper, or they clearly know, or they're clearly good for the job, but their personality just wasn't a fit, or there was just not a culture fit, or it just didn't seem like they were interested, or it just didn't like their attitude and they didn't get through, versus someone that we got to do some coaching, but I just loved their energy. Like, we're going to move forward with this candidate. So I've seen that happen. So that's what I'm saying. Your personality does make a difference if you can just stand out in that way, because everyone, or not everyone, but people, or the same candidates can have the same skills, right? But if we're really only have one head count or one role open, if someone has a better personality than this other person, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go with the better personality because that's who they want to work with. And close strong. So again, reaffirm that you're interested, ask about next steps. When are you going to hear back? Just make sure that you're being engaged and you're interested in the role. Okay, post interview. So I think this part is pretty important. Send a thank you email. I would just relay it to the recruiter. I know there's this big thing of like, hey, can I get the interviewer's email so I can say thank you? A lot of companies are getting away from that because it's like privacy concerns. Typically, recruiters will relay that message to the interviewer or hiring manager. So I would just send your recruiter like, hey, I just finished up my interviews. Can you tell Ashley that it was great chatting with her and learning more about X, Y, and Z. Looking forward to next steps. So just keep it brief too, because again, interviewers, their full-time job is not to interview. This is something that they're taking an hour or two out of their day. So they're not going to have time to read a long-winded email. So keep it short and sweet and just send it to your recruiter so that they can forward it to the interviewer. Following up strategically. So my thing about following up, I like to say within 5 days, if you have not heard anything, definitely follow up. If you still don't hear anything, I would do another follow up like after 3 to 5 days after the first follow up. And then if you don't hear anything from there, I would just let it go. Like, unfortunately, it happens. Job searching is like dating. You're gonna get ghosted. You're gonna get rejected. You might get a circle back. um, so overall, just stay engaged, but don't follow up more than, I would say, 2 to 3 times. Three should be the absolute max. Like, if you don't hear back in the third time, then it's over. It's fine. And then keep applying. So this is the most important point on this slide. Please, just because you had an interview and you think you did well, it might not be the end all be all. There could be something that happens that might have nothing to do with your interview performance. It could literally be they shut down the role, or, their priorities shifted. There's a hiring freeze. The role is no longer hiring. Whatever the case is, you want to still keep applying. Again, it's like dating. Until someone wants to make it official with you, you're technically still single. So keep applying, keep dating, whatever the case is. So overall, always keep applying even after an interview, because you just never know. All right, we have another Slido. So negotiated salary. Have you negotiated before? Let's see it. Ooh, okay. I love this 56%. Okay, only a few times. I wonder why. They must have gave you a bomb offer and you just had to take it. Okay, don't know how. It's okay. You're gonna learn today. All right, we'll give it 10 more seconds. All right, so it looks like a lot of you guys have at least a few times. Rule of thumb is always negotiate, even if it's for $5 more. You just never know. unless you're making 50K and you get 100K, then I guess in that sense, why negotiate? But long story short, negotiate something. And it doesn't even have to be salary. It could be, can you pay for my internet if I'm working from home? Or at least ask. Like my dad always says, you never, what's the quote? I don't remember right now, but closed mouth doesn't get fed. There you go. So you have to ask for something. So when negotiating salary, here's just some things you want to do. You want to do your research. So once you have that offer, do not sign until you do your research and you let it simmer, let it marinate. Like, you don't got to sign immediately. Like, yes, they give you these timelines of 24 hours or 3 days. Like, utilize the timelines. Like, you got the offer in hand, like everything's good. So let's take some time, take a deep breath before you sign. So starting with research, you want to know the industry standards. So who are you up against in terms of other companies? Like, what are other companies? What are their offers looking like? You want to know the company info. So you want to know, the size of the company, reputation. Leveling is a good thing to look at, just because leveling is different everywhere. I know at the bigger tech companies, each level has a certain salary band. So definitely having those conversations with your recruiter. The recruiter should be telling you what salary band you're at. And then also with these salary transparency laws, technically, I believe all states now, or I don't know, most states are putting salary in the job description. So you should be able to see that transparently. And then also know what the bonuses and perks are of the company, because I know they factor that into total comp. And then benchmarking. So benchmarking is essentially comparing your skills and experience to what's typical for your role. So when you're looking at websites, so I mentioned them here, it's like levels.fyi is a good website for tech roles. PayScale, Glassdoor, Comparably, salary.com. Just make sure your offer aligns with the industry standard, and then also, again, comparing to just like your location, for example. If they're making you move, you got to factor all of that in. So do your research and benchmarking for that. And then network. So actually, when I got my Google offer, I was like, oh, I'm at Google. I don't care how much I make. Like, I just want to be at Google. But no, thank God I actually asked someone that worked at Google. I was like, hey, this is my offer. Is this good? Should I ask for more? She's like, oh, girl, ask for more. Because she was transparent for me. She was like, I'm making this, you could definitely make this at your level. Like, she was very like honest. So I definitely negotiated more and I got it. So if I just was like, oh my God, I'm at Google, I'm just going to take whatever. No. Again, these companies have money. Please. Unless they're like, this is best and final, then okay. But if they haven't said that, then ball's in your court. Ask. And then job postings. So again, salary transparency, reiterate the range too. And let's say the range is 90 to 110 and they're giving you 100K. I would ask those questions like, hey, I did see the range was up to 110. Just want to see, why did we get, or how did we get to the 100K mark? Because based on what I've been seeing is this role is at least 110. What can we do to get to 110? So definitely ask questions as to how they got to that number. That definitely helps too. Crowdsource data. So I love Reddit and I'm a avid Redditor. And so I'm always looking and seeing, especially when my clients have offers in hand, I help with research. So I will go into Reddit and just see if I can find anything about, what are they making at that company, or what offers is the typical offer that a company is presenting. So definitely utilize those resources like Reddit, LinkedIn, things like that. That goes along with networking, and then use those websites as well. Beyond salary, so benefits, PTO, all of this is negotiable. Especially if you want, certain type of healthcare, or you have any questions about healthcare, they're able to definitely answer those questions for you. PTO days, let's say they're not able to reach your salary request. That's when it is a good time to go beyond salary. I don't recommend trying to negotiate both. I feel like start with salary first, so your base, and then go into benefits if they're not able to. Or even bonus too is another thing. If they can't get your base up, go ahead and negotiate your bonus. Another thing too, with all the layoffs, I've been hearing you can negotiate your severance. So definitely talk about severance as well before you sign an offer. And then also you can negotiate your severance when you do, if you do get a severance. So just think about those things too in terms of salary negotiation. Flexibility. So remote work, if you're working at home, they should be reimbursing you for internet. If you have to relocate, are they going to handle your relo? Development, if they do want like a certain certification, are they going to pay for that? Things like that. Okay, negotiation verbiage. So I've added the 3 verbiages that I feel are very important. The main takeaway here is you really want to start with gratitude. Again, back to the whole personality and energy. Like, don't get feisty during negotiations, because then we're not going to want to give it to you. Like, you got to be nice, sincere, like, ooh, I'm so excited to work with you. But there's just one caveat. The base salary just isn't where I need it to be, or I'm just seeing in the market that it's typically this range. Like, how can we get to this number? So you want to show excitement. We want to show, or we want to know as a recruiter, like, you want this role so bad, but we just need this number to happen for you to sign. One thing that I've heard that works a lot too, or what I've seen that's worked a lot, is, hey, if you're able to get me to this number or as close as possible, I will sign immediately. That's the line where I'm like, I need my metrics, so please sign this so we can get going. So that's another thing that is useful. Some hiring managers too are like, you know what, let's do it, because especially if it's a strong candidate, we just really want to close them. And if they're like, if you can get me as close to this number as possible, like if you can do whatever you can, or whatever we can as a recruiter to get you there and the hiring manager is excited about you, we're going to do what it takes. So, again, that's why I say always ask, even if it's for $5 more. You just never know. And there are times, I mean, granted, it's a different market, but there are times where some recruiters, they won't start at the higher end of the salary band. They leave room for negotiation. So they'll start at like the middle. But there are times where they just want to close people. They'll start at that high end and they'll say, hey, that's best and final. So that's when you will start using other ways or beyond the salary. So, okay, if this is best and final, these perks, like, can I please have my internet comped and things like that. So, again, just be mindful of that. But overall, with your verbiage, please just start with some kindness and gratitude and that you're excited. All right, so we are nearing the end here. So the biggest takeaways is just to stand out to recruiters. So with your resume is your ticket in. So just make it shine, customize it for the role that you're applying to. You don't have to customize your resume to every single role that you're applying to, because granted, I'm sure you're applying to typically the same types of roles. But overall, you should have a good grasp of what those common roles, what their skills are listed, and like things like that. So just make sure you're highlighting your accomplishments and have them aligned to the qualifications for the role. Keep your resume clean, easy to read. Again, Canva, we love Canva, but I would not focus on making it pretty. Make sure the content is there and that it can go through the ATS. Interview prep, showcase your value. So really prepare for your interviews. I know some people like to wing them, but I just feel like nowadays, just because the job market is so competitive, you have to prepare. So just make sure that you know what's on your resume, you know the company, you ask questions, like just be interested and show personality. And then lastly, with negotiation, just know your worth, know your market, do your research. Do not sign the offer immediately. The offer is not going anywhere. I mean, obviously, if they give you a time frame, respect that. But just because the offer came at 3 o'clock, you don't have to sign by 3:01. Like, please just take some time to marinate. Like, let it sit there. Look at it. Like, read every little thing about it. Get a second opinion if you have to. Like, just really take some time to read your offer. And think of your offer as like a package. So look at every single part of the offer. So just to close, just have a solid resume, be confident in your interview skills, and just have a strong negotiation game. And like I said, it's like a muscle. Once you keep putting resumes out or keep revising your resume, you keep interviewing and talking to people, you keep negotiating, like you're gonna get more comfortable as time goes on. So I hope this presentation helped, and thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Keanna. I know we all learned a lot. Um, I wanted to mention before we do our Q&A that just for attending today and registering, we're giving everybody here early access to our Black Friday event, which is our biggest sale of the year. It's 50% off JobScan Premium annual subscriptions. So when you sign up for an annual subscription, it's going to be half price as long as you go through this link here that's highlighted. This is for first-time JobScan Premium subscribers. And you'll get things like unlimited scans, access to tools like LinkedIn optimization, and the AI tools like the cover letter generator, bullet point generator, and the keyword synonym detector. JobScan Premium just helps you put your best foot forward for getting your resume perfected for the recruiters. So everything that Keanna has been talking about, JobScan can help with that. So we will put this up again. But moving on to the Q&A, I know we have a bunch of questions to get to. So Daniel asked, what is there anything that like immediately turns you off on a resume as a recruiter? What's like the number one thing that you can think of that's just like ooh?
Honestly, it's the typos and grammatical
Yeah.
errors. I just feel like, again, there's just so many tools out there that will help you avoid that. And yeah, again, it's just that attention to detail piece. Like that
Yeah.
is the biggest thing. And again, even though we don't look at your resume long enough, like for me, it's 10 seconds. But if I see, maybe I should increase it to 20. But basically, if I just see some errors, I'm just like, that reflects your work. So
Right.
that turns me off.
Yeah, and probably seems like they just don't care enough to
Yeah,
double check.
right.
Okay. What is the best approach to the required salary field?
Ooh, this is a good one. So if they have a range, I would just notate the range. So just reiterate if it says 120 to 150, put that in the salary field.
Okay.
Let's say there is no range. That's when you put your research hat on and go ahead and do research, do common salary ranges for this role, and then input that. But again, with this pay transparency thing, there should be ranges.
Yeah.
So if there's not, I think that's a red flag. But again, I don't know if it's because of different states and things like that. I know California, New York for sure, and Colorado.
Okay.
Texas, not sure, but you should definitely do your research before you put in that field.
Okay. Awesome. Let's see. Do you think it's worth putting your job title or desired job title by your name in the contact info section?
Mm. Okay, if you have space, yes. But again, please keep your resume 1 to 2 pages. If you put that title and it makes it 2 pages when it should be one, take the title off. But if you
Yeah.
have space, go ahead. But again, it really doesn't gonna make or break if you're gonna move forward or not because we're gonna see your job title on the experiences.
Hmm.
And then especially if you have like your professional summary or highlight section, you could put your desired title there. But I don't recommend putting both, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay. Let's see. Do you, oh, this is a good one. Do you value experience over skills? I've been advised to make a skills-based resume, putting that up front, I
Mm.
guess.
It really depends on the role. So I would say if you are a director and up, we really want to see your skills of like leadership, things like that.
Hmm.
But if you're a mid-level or early career, I would say we want to see what you've done. So keep that in mind. I think personally, I like to see experience more than skills. I think skills can be learned, or you can learn skills. So I'd rather see what you've done and how you can incorporate your skills within that.
Okay. And on the topic of skills, what's the max number of skills you think a person should include, or is that page number more important to you, or what?
I would say page number is more important, but
Mhm.
also at least you should. I'd say the minimum you should have is at least five.
Yeah.
So five, so like 5 to 20 max. But again, I would say keep the skills aligned to the job description.
Yeah.
So it like you don't put all like 20 skills that have nothing to do with the job description. That's not going to help. I'd rather you put 5 skills that pertain to the job description or the role that you're going to be applying for.
Yeah. And just to plug JobScan helps you prioritize and kind of rank the skills that are going to be most important for you to include based on the job description. So that can really help out in kind of narrowing down the skills that you need to include.
Yes.
Um, mhm. I know you talked about some of those skills that are like too broad or that anybody can use. What about skills such as communication, leadership, analytics, client relationship management? That's a pretty large range of
Yeah.
skills, but which of these, if any, do you think are worth including?
So I'll talk about the ones to throw out. So communication, I feel like that's
Yeah.
just a given. You're going to communicate in your role.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, you're going to touch on that in your resume in the experience section. So
Mhm.
throw out communication, leadership. If you're a leader, if I see you're a director, great, that's given.
Yeah.
So throw that out too. Now, analytics, I would keep that on there because not everyone has that skill.
Yeah.
So keep that on there. I would be even more specific. So, in terms of analytics, what tools were you using? What did you analyze?
Right.
Client relationship management, it just really depends again on the role. If you're not broadcasting it in your resume or in your experience section, then yes, go ahead and put that on there. But if we can see it throughout your bullet points, you don't have to. I'd rather you put like a tool instead of that or something more specific.
Yeah. Okay. Um, do recruiters care at all about including awards? And
Mm.
I'm going to throw in certifications too, because I know that's one we talk about a lot.
Yes. So I've been in debrief meetings where if it's what between one candidate and another, if one candidate has awards and certifications,
Hmm.
let's say they were like top seller or had like I got, for example, employee of the month before, and I actually add that on my resume.
Hmm.
We'll go with this person that has these awards because clearly they've worked hard to get to that point versus
Yeah.
someone that doesn't have that noted. So yes, if you've got an award for something, got certified for something, add that because you're competing with multiple candidates.
Yeah, and I think certifications I always think are also a good idea for people who might be like changing careers or,
Yes.
that's a good way to show that you're going out of your way to try and pick up other skills.
Right.
Ooh, I like this one. How do you effectively sidestep illegal
Mm.
questions like marriage, family, age? Um, Age is a big one with a lot of our users ask about age and how that, might affect their interview.
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, as I was going through interviews the last couple months, someone did ask me if I was single, and I literally made it awkward for them and said why.
Yeah,
So I was
that's a
like,
great
why is that
response.
relevant? So
Yeah,
honestly, just make it awkward for them. Like if they say, "Oh, do you have kids?" Why?
yeah,
Like, why is this relevant to the interview? Age, yes, like you mentioned, it is a big thing nowadays, and that's why I always tell people not to put if unless you're a new grad. If you're not a new grad, do not put the year you graduated because they will start doing calculations in their head like, oh, this person's 59 or whatever. So
mhm,
just a lot of age discrimination happening. So again, to sidestep it, just make it awkward for them. Why?
yeah. I love that response. Um, okay, let's see. I want to make sure. I know we were getting some questions in Slido too that we're
Oh,
looking at, so I want to make sure I'm getting to all of these here.
okay.
Uh, how far back in your work history should you go if you have more than 20 years experience?
This is a great question. So for my director and up folks, I would say focus on the first 10 years. Anything after 10 years, I like to put additional roles and I'll just notate the role title and where you worked, but you don't got to put additional bullet points for those roles. So yeah, I would say 10 years is the max.
Okay.
Again, for executives and up, or directors and up. Again, page 2 pages max for you guys because we're not reading more than 2 pages.
Okay. Um, Here we go. Do you have any advice for switching careers, such as a big career change, like from graphic design to project management?
Yes, this is where the certifications come through and come in. Now that I'm going to be working at Udemy, there are a bunch of courses you can take. There's also
Mhm.
Coursera. So, really get exposed to those project management tools so that you can put that on your resume. That will give you a lift. Another thing too is coffee chats. Start networking with people and start getting to know other project managers and let them know that you are in graphic design and want to get into project management. Like what route should I take? Or even if you can find previous graphic designers and who are now project managers, those are the people that you want to pick their brain and see like what did they do. So really networking and certifications is a good way to switch your career.
Okay. Lots of questions on cover letters. Can you comment on cover letters? Are you reading them? If so, what should a candidate add?
So I have never read a cover letter in my life as a recruiter. I'll be truthfully honest. I mean, things have probably changed now because a lot of companies are requiring cover letters, but they're doing that too because they're trying to filter out people that are just putting in all these applications, like the mass applications, and not putting in effort.
Yeah,
So for those cases, if it requires you, if they had a little asterisk of like you can't go past this page without it, put put a cover letter. Or if there's a company you really, really want to work at, put a cover letter, but then you need to reach out to someone. So you got to do work in terms of just taking that extra step. But I
right.
don't recommend putting a cover letter for every single job application because I would say a lot of recruiters aren't spending the time to read them. They're going to read your
Yeah.
resume.
That's always our recommendation too, by the way, is only include one if it's being asked
Mhm.
for. And we do have a cover letter generator that you can check out if you want to. Um, but yes, I agree with that. Um, well, I guess we don't need to ask any of the other cover letter questions then.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And I've heard similar responses from other um, career coaches. Let's see. Oh, I like this. What if the hiring manager really liked you but said other positions coming are a better fit for you? How do you stay on their radar and know when that future job will be posted?
Ooh, this is a good one. And I actually just had a client that is going through this specific situation. She was interviewing with Dell, and then Dell said, "Hey, we want to actually pivot you to another position that's a better fit." So basically, they like you enough to be at the company. They just need to figure out what role that you're good at or could be
Mhm.
good at there. So overall, I would just keep following up with them. I would say every 2 weeks, like set a calendar reminder of like, hey, just want to check in. Definitely add them on, I was gonna say Instagram, not Instagram, LinkedIn. Add them on LinkedIn and just keep up with them. But I would say every 2 weeks, follow up and see. Um, and yeah, I think that's how you can stay on the radar.
Okay. We have time for probably two more questions, and these are coming from Slido. Should I exclude experiences that are irrelevant to the role to keep my resume to one page, even if it looks like there's a career gap?
No,
No.
I would
Okay.
keep all your experiences on there. Again, if you need to keep it to one page, start condensing your bullet points because if you
Okay.
have too many bullet points, again, your resume should just be a high level overview of who you are. You can start going into detail during the interviews. So it's like if you I'd rather you have all your work experience on there because I want you to showcase that. But that's when you
Mhm.
start condensing the bullet points that you have.
Okay. Let's see. One more. This feels like a good time to ask this question. Are there any free tools we can use to understand if the ATS is in our way to get interviews? I will say that you can use JobScan for free.
Yes.
Um, you just have limited scans and you don't have access to exclusive tools. Um, but as the ticker on the bottom is showing you now, you can get 50% off JobScan premium annual plans with our early Black Friday sale. Is there anything you want to say on that?
No, I was gonna say job scan. That's what I tell
Okay.
my clients as well. So
Awesome. Great. Well, I think that's probably all we have time for. Thank you
Yay.
so much, Kiana. This was great. I know we all learned so much. Um, yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. Take care all.